Hi, I'm Larry Puckett, the DCC Guy. Today on the DCC Guy, I want to talk about ballasting. Now, ballasting seems to be one of those things that people consider a necessary evil to completing a model railroad, or they absolutely hate it. I don't know anybody that really likes doing ballasting except maybe Cody Grivno. Before we go on to that, and I show you how I go about doing it, let me remind you one more time to click the little red button if you already haven't, and subscribe to the channel. I appreciate it. We're over 600 now, so it keeps on climbing. And I'll keep pumping those videos out to you, so keep coming back for more. I've set up this 1-foot section of track here to give you an idea of how I go about ballasting here on the Piedmont Southern, and based on about almost 40 years of experience in doing these games. The simplest method that a lot of people have used and is promoted by a lot, and it's something that you have to master because there are places where you can only use this, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But basically you get yourself a teaspoon. This is just a plain old plastic spoon, and you load it up, and then you come along the top of the rails, top of the ties here, and just tap it in so that it fills up the spaces in there. I'm going to stop there. Then I like to use these flared brushes. You can get these at any place that sells art supplies, craft shops such as Michael's, that kind of thing. And basically they're just a flared flat brush. But they're great because you can drag them across the top of the ties and they will move the ballast down in between the ties. Also, they're great for cleaning out the web of the rail. So you get all the ballast down below the rail heads and below the top of the ties. Then you can bring it along the edge here and tap down the edge of the ballast on what would be your road bed. Okay. Now I typically use the cork road bed, and that's got a nice slope, and you can just basically move it down in there. That works fairly straightforward. I've done a lot of rail this way. You also are going to need to do this when you turn to doing turnouts, because turnouts require special care. You obviously can't use any mechanical means to do this because of all the things that get in the way. But you do have to kind of work it in gently in between all of these little appliances here, the closure rails, the point rails, all of this. Stay away from the points themselves, as I just failed to do, and work it in here like this. I tend to leave a little extra room around the points themselves, because you don't want anything to get down in there. And then you can come back and just move it down like I showed you a second ago. You can then get just a little bit in your spoon and put it in here, in these close-in spaces. You don't want to get anything down in here between the point rails and the throw rod. You don't want to get that clogged up by any means. One of the things I like to do before I do any gluing is I've got this little bottle here. I have no idea where I got it, but it came from a model railroading supply company somewhere, and it's designed for applying oil and other liquids. So keep your eye out for that guy. I will too if I can ever find it. But the great thing about it, it came with this little needle that fits into the tip here to keep it from spreading all over the place if you knock it over. But you can apply just a drop of oil to these switch points here and to the throw rod. And that will prevent any glue from getting in there later on and keep the points moving. And then afterwards you can come back with a Q-tip or a cotton swab of some type and some rubbing alcohol and get that glue out and get that oil out of there, because you don't want to have oil on your track. I know a lot of people that swear that applying oil to the track improves your conductivity for electricity and all of that. As far as I'm concerned, that's the last thing you want on your rails is oil, because it mixes with dust and it creates that gray-black grunge that ends up on the wheels of your locomotives and your cars, and on the rail heads as well. Okay, let me get this cleaned up and we'll go to the next method I use. Okay, this is a ballast spreader. It's made by a company called MLR Manufacturing. It used to be available through Walthers and Walthers Suppliers, but I checked today and I couldn't find it there. However, it is available on the Micromark website. So apparently they've taken over distribution and or production of this. Basically, you can see it comes apart, and it's got this gray plastic plug inside of what appears to be a PVC tube. And you can see that it's got these holes drilled through the bottom of it and matching holes through this one. Now this fits together, and you notice it's lined up. There is this pair of red dots here. Now when those are lined up, the holes in the bottom here are lined up. And you'll see it does have grooves here for fitting on the rails. It's also got this brown piece of I'm not sure what this material is. It looks like phenolic board of some kind. But it's glued in place here, and that serves to level the ballast. Now what you do is you get this offset a bit so it won't leak as you put in ballast. You add ballast to it, like so, fairly straightforward. Okay, you want to be moving, I think, with this at one end and the two red dots here where the ballast is going to come out on this end. You line them up and then you start moving along. And as you see, it spreads this nice level layer of ballast in between the rails, between the ties, and then off on the sides. It's kind of light on the sides, so I used this a few times and put it away, and I don't think I've used this in 20 years. But I dug it out for this video just to show you it is available, and you can get it from Micromark. Okay, let me set up again, let me clean up, and then we'll move on to the next method. Okay, for the third method, I have this device here, or this product here. It's made by a company named, well, it's PROSES. I've also seen this sold under the Bachmann name as well. You can find this through Walthers dealers, Walthers website, and it's also on the Micromark website, and I'm sure there are other dealers out there that are selling this as well. It's a fairly sturdy plastic crafted product. You can see it has this slope sheet in it, and you pour your ballast in here, and since it's sloped, it constantly delivers a flow of ballast to the holes here in the bottom. You can see this line of holes that allows the ballast to flow out onto the track. And it's got these two grooves so that it rides on top of the rails and spreads the ballast evenly as it flows out. Okay. Now, one of the problems I ran into with this device was I would fill it up, and it's got this basically a trapdoor mechanism, sliding door, whatever you want to call it, and you close it, fill it up, and then you can put it on the rails to do your work. Unfortunately, I kept hitting that little lever with my thumb when I picked it up, and ballast would go out everywhere. So finally, I got innovative, okay? I drilled a hole right here on this side, put a 256 screw in here, and added a simple rubber band to the mix. Put the rubber band over the lever, like so. Run it around over the head of the screw. And now you have a spring-loaded trap door that stays shut until you want it open. So let me give you an idea of how this works. Of course, there's two ends. Let me also first point out, this device, it sells for about, I believe, $29 is what I paid for it. Like I said, you can get it at various sites. You can buy it online on eBay, probably cheaper, and Amazon, and wherever. It's available at a lot of places at a number of different prices. There is a version of this with wheels that allows it to ride on the rails, and a little set screw type mechanism that allows you to increase or decrease the height above the rails so that you can control the thickness of the ballast. I think there's too many variables involved in something like that. I think it also came with a coupler so that you could hook up to a locomotive and pull it. I'm not convinced that it's worth the extra $15 to be able to do that. So I decided to be cheaper and go with this one, and I'm perfectly happy with the way this one works. So basically then, you just spoon ballast into it, like so. Okay, get a good layer of ballast here. And place it on the track, okay, like so. Open the trap door and move along. And you can see it spreads a beautiful line of ballast here along the top of the ties, and then I just run my little flat brush here along, and it cleans out the web of the rails for me, and it moves this ballast down to where it's below the ties, and any excess flows out to some of the other spaces down here. You can then run it along the shoulder on each side here like this. And get yourself one of these foam brushes that you can get at most hardware stores, Menards, Lowe's, Depot, that kind of place. It's got about a 60-degree angle on there. And then you can just tap the shoulder down to get a nice slope. I typically use cork road bed, so this follows the slope quite nicely. So that's about all there is to using this one. Like I said, this from now on is my go-to device, my go-to method for working with ballast. That pretty much wraps up my take on how to ballast track. In part 2 of this series, which will come in about 3 or 4 days, we're going to talk about adding cement to the ballast to hold it in place. So I have a few things to add about that, and that'll be a short video, probably a little bit shorter than this. Please ask again, consider subscribing to the channel, and also I've moved the icon of me over here because I found out it was actually covering up the subscribe button. So you can also click on this icon of me and subscribe through that as well. Also, we've got 2 video links up here on each side of my head. Feel free to click on those and view those whenever you get a chance. And keep watching. In the meantime, have a good one. We'll see you in 3 or 4 days with part 2 of this video series on ballasting.